Better Responses workshop. We are in this series as a church called Better For It, where we're taking the weekend message and taking a next step into an effective tool and worksheet that'll help us actually equip or like put into practice what we learned on Sunday. It's the Better For It workshops, and we're so excited to be in part 2 of it today. I've got Jen Oakes here with me, and we're gonna have a really good time. We got a great tool for you, so make sure you can either check out the message from Sunday before this workshop, before you finish it, or after. Either one's gonna be fine. I got a link in the description below. But then also make sure you are registered so you have access to the Better For It workshops dashboard. That'll give you access to all of the workshops that we do over the course of this series, and most specifically, it will give you the ability to download the tool we're talking about tonight. It is several pages long. It is quite hefty. It's a really, really good one. So you're going to want to make sure you either do that now or do it right after we are done. So make sure you register at the link below, get access to that dashboard. And Jen, I'm really excited about this tool, mainly because, sometimes it's like, I don't know if we'll have the right tool. What are we going to use? And for this, as we were talking about it, we were like, there are way too many options, because what we're doing is using some stuff by Michael Dye. Michael Dye is actually, he and his wife Kathy attend Mission. They're great friends of Mission, and they have built this unbelievable, like this vast and thorough recovery process that's all biblically based and also neurochemically inspired. Like, it's incredible, brain and Bible together. And we've been working together a lot over the last year. We did something called the Change Workshop, which we're going to push everybody toward at the end. But he has all of these different tools that are all about how to respond instead of react. And so honestly, we had a hard time choosing. But why don't you kind of give us a runway for sort of what's going to prepare us to use this tool. It's called Name That Button. But give us a runway of sort of the brain understanding we need to get into the tool, and then we'll kind of take it from there.
Yeah. So basically, the whole thing is that this Genesis process, which I brought my personal book with me, because this was actually a super life-changing experience for me to go through. I've been through the Change Workshop. I've been through a change group myself a couple years ago that literally really did change my life. It was cool to even just look back and see the first time I did it. I'm going through it again right now with the group, and to see all that God has done in and through me because of the tools that I grabbed from this. So I highly recommend it, first of all. And I just need to say a disclaimer right off the bat. Like, not an expert, I'm still like just learning this stuff, but it's blown my mind. And the biggest thing, it's kind of like the foundation of the Genesis process that I'm learning all about, that has been so life-changing for me. It was learning about the limbic system. It's a big word. Limbic.
It makes you feel really smart when you say it. Well, that was my limbic system.
That's right. Limbic. I need to make new limbic memories. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to explain the limbic system, mostly by reading what Michael Dye has written about the limbic system. But basically, it's this part of our brain that is like the experiential memory part of our brain. So when we have experiences, it's the part of our brain that captures those memories and informs us whether we are safe or not safe. It's the part of our brain that tells us whether we should fight, flight, or freeze. It is this part of our brain that is developed and it is responsible for all of our automatic responses. So it's even the part of our brain that Paul was talking about in Romans 7 when he talks about, like, I do these things that I don't want to do, and I don't know why I do them, and I do the very things I don't want to do, and I don't do the things I want to do, and like, why is that? Well, it's this part of our brain, because we have this space in our head that is influenced by our memories, and so it becomes our reactive responses in our day-to-day life because of these memories back there. So this is basically how it works. I will use Michael's words. It releases reward chemicals, this part of our brain, the limbic system, producing good feelings for behaviors that increase your chances for survival. And then it produces fear and painful feelings to help you avoid things that have hurt you or decrease your chance for survival. So our ability to change kind of depends on this survival brain. So our survival brain's job is to keep us from taking risks that associate it with fear. because fear is associated with things that have hurt you. And so then you have these things in your head. They're like, avoid at all costs, right? So that sounds kind of heady. So I'll just give you an example of how this has played out in my life. An example of a limbic memory that has informed a lot of my decisions and my responses, which was when my memory is when I was in high school, I played basketball. I loved basketball. It was like my whole life. All I wanted to do was play basketball in college. Like it was everything to me. So I went to my coach my junior year of high school, and I asked him, I was the one that was like early for practice, stayed late. I just worked so hard, but I could tell that he was a little apprehensive about like really being like, you really have it. I always say what I lacked in talent, I made up for in passion, right?
Still true. Still true today.
Still true today. So with everything that I do. But so, I mean, I knew there was that piece, but I also was like, what is it? And so I said, what do I need to do to get into college? And on a Post-it, kind of like this right here, he wrote down the words, lose 25 pounds. And he slid it over the table to me. And in that moment, so this limbic memory for me is this moment of my coach telling me, if you want to succeed in your dreams, then you have to lose weight. You have to be perfect on the outside. You have to have this exterior that matches with what everybody else looks like. And so that informed for me this memory, this one little tiny memory in my history, but I can remember the room. I can remember the tie color he had. It was like a poop brown. It was very ugly. I can remember, I don't know if I can say that, but I just did. It's part of the memory. I remember like the smell in the room. It was the ASB room where they sold candy. I mean, I just remember so much about that moment. But that memory has really informed so much of my life that when I would feel like whenever I wanted to do something, whenever I wanted to like try something new or whatever, there was a part of my brain that would be like, before you do, you have to get yourself together. Before you can be successful, you've got to first lose weight. You've got to put on this perfect appearance. You've got to kind of have your act together. Yep. And so without knowing it, what it did in me was developed, an eating disorder, perfectionism, and just a striving in me to like what I could do on my own is just not enough. I got to keep trying, keep working. Right. And so it created this thing in me that all the way into, my 40s, I'm still living by this rule that I'm not quite right, that no matter how hard I work, I need to work a little bit harder. And there's always something to improve and get better on. Right. And so that really became something that was like a button for me, so that when like a trigger or like something, when that got pushed, then it would kick in for me a response of like, I gotta be perfect. I've gotta like get all my ducks in a row. I've gotta get it all right.
Right, because there's a vulnerability and I must protect it. One of the things that Michael said that's been so helpful for me is that emotional wounds are absolutely no different to the limbic system, no different than physical wounds. And so if I've got an open wound on my arm, I'm going to keep people at a distance. I'm going to protect it. I'm going to build a wall around it. Of course I would. That makes sense. That's just smart, right? But these emotional wounds are so much deeper and so much more confusing. This is obvious on my arm, but that is not obvious because that also wasn't the first time that button was put there. Probably it goes all the way back to a million things and personality and all these different things. And so what do? We build a wall around our emotional vulnerabilities. And so it's so true, and it's so obvious when you label it so clearly, but so not obvious when you just like somebody hits the button and you're like, how dare you? And they're like, I didn't do anything. I don't know what you're talking about. But that's what we do. We react and we wish we would have responded. And we're always trying to clean up the reaction, but that's like, you can't just build a bigger wall around your emotional wound. And so that's kind of where this worksheet comes in and sort of the tool, because you can't just distance people to keep people away from the button. You have to get rid of the button. And that's sort of the hope of what we want to do here.
Because what happens is then you have this experiential memory that a lot of times you don't even understand that it's there. You don't even know why it's there. In fact, the limbic system is so incredible, and we won't go into all this, but it's so amazing that it actually you can even experience trauma, and what it will do is like shut off, and you won't even remember that it happened. That's that part of your brain that almost protects you because you can't handle it, so it protects you. Or you develop memories around even perceived truth. It doesn't even have, like, for example, like my dad was like, is a super hard worker. He always like worked extra hours and so committed to his job. He was like an entrepreneur mind and just like the hardest worker. But as a child, I perceived that as like, maybe dad doesn't really want to be around me because I'm annoying. And so I have this perceived memory that actually begins to inform something about me, that I'm too much, that I'm annoying. My dad is just like working really hard. He's just doing his job and showing up. But that could be my perceived memory. So that's what the limbic system does too. It creates these things. So then we feel these things. We have these strong emotions. We have these reactions, and sometimes we don't know what they're coming from. So then in order to handle them, what we do is we develop coping mechanisms to survive, because it's all about the survival brain, like how I'm going to avoid pain and I'm going to move towards things that feel safe. And so there's three things involved with the limbic system: is food, sex, and what's the third one? Safety. Yeah. Food, sex, and safety. Safety is usually found even in like drugs, alcohol, food addictions, because it satiates the pain for a little while. So we move towards these things. So when our button gets pushed, we respond with trying to cope by using one of these three things to cope with this pain. And so if we never identify the button, why it's there, how it got there, and what to do about it, we're just going to continue to cope, and we're going to continue to sort of live in this space where we're not really addressing those limbic memories and making new ones.
Right. So you just do trigger management. If I can stay away from all the triggers, I'll be fine.
Or if everybody else stops pushing my button.
Yeah. And it's
I'll
like, if you've been in part of the world ever, you'll know that there is no such thing as a trigger-free world. And like an event, 0 days without incident. It will always be 0 days without incident, because unless you cut off all people, that'll never happen. And so the point is to resolve the button, not hide it better. So tell us about the tool that that Michael built, and we just hijacked. That's why we threw his name on it.
Something else from them. It's just fantastic.
Yeah, it's
Thankfully, they're gracious.
But yeah, why don't you walk us through it and sort of what it looks like to use this in not an everyday basis. Probably shouldn't do this worksheet every day, but
maybe.
Yeah, tell us what it looks like in real life.
Yeah, so this is a great worksheet. It takes you literally step by step to help you understand what your button is, and then how to find other ways to resolve it besides just getting triggered or just flying off the handle. And it's not just, we use a button that's like, don't push my buttons. And we a lot of times think of anger. Anger is just a response to something else that's going on. There's something else under there that's happening. But you can respond like I did with my trigger is or my button is, my coping is usually perfectionism,
and hard
achievement,
work.
hard work.
Let
me speed up my life, really fast to try to get better, So we'll walk through this worksheet and we'll go just quickly line by line. You can do it on your own. It's super helpful for whatever. And it could be kind of like a big moment, like mine with my coach, or a moment that happens at work. Like, for example, the other day, we're going to use when my button was pushed by the one and only Mike Hickerson.
Yep. The best part is we didn't even tell him that he was a part of this.
That's right. He's going to love it. Mike pushes my buttons a lot. No, not really. He does it. Mike and I have known each other for a gazillion years. He's like my brother. So we love to argue about different things. We bait each other all the time. But the other day in a meeting, I noticed that my button got pushed, and it was because I brought up something in a meeting that wasn't the right time. He was basically, this isn't the right time to do it, but I brought it up anyway. But I had an opportunity to talk to him about it before, but I didn't. So after the meeting, he came to me to just explain that happened, and that I needed to do it in a different order. Well, my button was pushed. My button was, I am it really bothers me when I disappoint somebody that's in authority over me.
Mhm.
And it goes back to my perfectionism, my achieving, all those things. So what pushed my button? Well, Mike Hickerson. Right. No. So that's the
Which
first
is
question.
okay to own that and label it. Like,
but honestly, like the button was there and it's really not Mike's fault. But what happened in that moment was like, there was like this thing that happened in me and I could feel it rising up in me. So then you go to the next step and then you decide like, how did it make me feel? Well, the reality so the button is just like what happened, like what triggered it. And that was what happened.
Yeah.
How it made me feel was I felt super defensive.
Mm-hmm.
I immediately know it was this button in me that wasn't even realistic. It was because it made me feel like I have to defend myself. I have to fight this, even though I was actually in the wrong. But sometimes it's hard for us to even understand. Emotional intelligence actually isn't like the same thing as social intelligence. Emotional intelligence is actually having an intelligence about your own emotions. If you grew up in a household where emotions weren't encouraged or defined, if you were like supposed to just be happy all the time, or you didn't have an opportunity to like actually walk through sadness or through emotion, then you may not even understand your emotions. So in the worksheet, we have this emotion wheel. I don't know if you can see it, but this is actually a really cool tool to help you even understand like, here's my general emotion. Maybe I'm angry, but maybe what I really am is let down. And the thing that's beneath that is that, or what I'm doing with that is I'm getting defensive. And it's really, so it really helps you kind of identify what these emotions
it helps
are.
you communicate it to somebody else
Right.
too. It's like, I'm mad. Like, well, great.
Yeah,
What do you want me to do with that as your spouse or best
Mhm.
friend or family? Like, no, I feel let down. Oh, well, I now I have some empathy for you. If
Yeah.
you're just angry, I'm like, okay, well, stop
Right.
being angry.
It helps redefine
Yeah.
that. And we even
Yeah.
put one in here to help you with if you're a parent and you have kids. The faces one, the feelings chart. You guys, this is so important that we teach our kids how to identify their own emotions.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can teach our kids emotional intelligence of going like, I'm sad, and being like, that's just a data for you to understand you're sad. So there you go. So this is also a really good tool. So you identify like, how did it make you feel by using this emotional wheel? And then how you react, like what was your physical reaction like in the moment? So for me in that moment, it was defensive. It was, like not
Raised
owning my
voice,
part.
like body language,
yes, be
all the
really
things. Yeah.
specific in those things.
Did I turn away and walk around the corner? I think
Mhm.
all that, even we wrote on here, like be honest and specific, because you're not going to like always how you reacted.
Yeah, I did
But if
not
you
like how I reacted
run
at
away
all.
from
Yeah.
the specifics, you're going to run away from the information. And the
Mhm.
information is the only thing that gets us all the way down to the
Right.
bottom.
Right.
And so all these things, even the who pushed your button is like, don't excuse it.
Mm.
You're not actually labeling them at fault here.
Mhm.
You're just like, well, so-and-so
This
pushed it.
happens,
My wife
right.
pushed my button.
Mhm.
Again, as Michael would say, like, it's not her button though. She pushed it, sure, but it's your button.
It's your
so
button.
you deal with it.
So let's
you're,
figure out how it got
you're not
there.
blaming anybody
Mhm.
yet. Like, you're just getting information.
Right.
Yeah.
And so figuring that out, watching yourself do that, because it's a real tell. Like if that your button got pushed, like, because you may not even realize it's doing that until like, oh, the next meeting, I also got defensive and I also walked away and folded my arms or whatever the thing is.
Right.
Super helpful to know. Then it takes you to what was your stress level, which there's also another really cool sheet that helps you understand the different stress levels of our reactions. So like, was it anxiety, blanking out, defensive, overreacting, overwhelmed, or over the edge? So even being able, what did Michael say about identifying even your stress level?
He said that identifying and naming your stress level in a very specific way can cut your stress in the moment by up to 50%. Like it
crazy.
literally, if you can go,
Just
no,
identifying.
I'm not 5, I'm 3. It takes it down like a whole level, which is unbelievable.
It's fascinating.
Right. Instead of just saying, oh, I'm stressed.
Mhm.
Like, well, that's a big word. So, and it's a vague word. So if we can be specific, apparently that actually takes away a lot of its power in the moment.
Mm-hmm. So identifying that stress level then leads us to figuring out what button was pushed. And so there's some examples on the sheet here. anger, disrespect, expectations, guilt, perfectionism is always a big one with me, shame, vulnerability. So something has gotten exposed. Something has happened in this. So what was it? So for me, the button I was pushed was probably a achievement button, that, or like a defensive, or like I don't want to be wrong. Like that was like really brought up in me because I'm trying to please my boss. I'm trying to do the right thing, and I didn't. And
Right.
so now I'm choosing defensive, right? Who put that button there? Well, that's a big question.
It's a big
That's a
question.
big question.
Um,
And it wasn't Mike.
no, yeah.
in this, in this story, is not.
He might have
it's
helped
not
it
who-
along even 5
he
years
just-
ago. Who knows?
just-
But
yeah.
that's different than in the moment.
right. Yeah, but this button could go all the way back to my coach. Like this button that, or other people in my past that have set an expectation of me that was like, basically my love is dependent upon your achievement and your approval. And somewhere along the way, even if it was not intended, I learned that. And so that is a big thing that got pushed there. Who else made you feel this way? When did it happen? And what's the earliest memory of it? That's all tied up in that.
I think it's helpful to know too that it's not just traumatizing experiences that put buttons there. It's not just like, well, nothing bad's happened. I had a good childhood. Like my parents were fine. They're like, that doesn't, like that moment, he didn't say, the coach, to you, like, you will never amount to anything because you won't be able to lose 25 pounds. And I don't think everything you do is he said none of those things. But that's what you heard. And so it's not just these big traumatizing experiences, literally all the furthest back thoughts and memories that I've had and realized, like, a lot of them were even my parents trying to do something really wonderful or trying to say, like, we approve of this and this is good. And for some reason I got lost in translation and it just changed completely. And that's so not their fault. It's also not my fault because I was, 7. So it's really, none of this is placing blame. It's just trying to get to the root of it so that we can do something about it.
Right.
And so as honest as we can, as specific as we can, really helpful.
Yeah, because it could be a perceived memory, not even the actual truth. But what you learned to believe about it was based on that experience. And that's why it's very scary to be a parent. But that's why I say, like, just get your kids to fall in love with Jesus and therapy, and you're going to be fine. That's right? Okay. So yeah, write that down. Okay. Then the next two are just like, what was your up talk? Like, what did you have to say to yourself to justify this behavior? So my up talk to Mike literally in the moment was like, well, I didn't have time to do that. Which, if you say that, it's like, well, you had time, you didn't make time, and all of this. So like, which is true. So like, they're argumentative, like, I'm justified, I'm busy, I'm important. I like, that was my up talk that justified my defensiveness in that moment.
And is that all external? That's internal too,
it could,
right? That's the
most people do it
I can
internally.
stonewall.
I should have done it internally, maybe, but yeah.
It's like, I can stonewall and not engage with this because you're having a bad day. Like that's my up talk maybe, and my like, I'm gonna run away from this. It's because you're having a bad day. You'll realize tomorrow this was your fault.
Yeah. Right.
I'm just not gonna deal with it. That's justifying my reaction.
Right. And we can a lot of times find ourselves using the up talk in unhelpful conversations with other people that aren't meant to resolve, just to complain. And we can get the people that we know have our ear, or we have their ear. We can be like, look what they did, and continue to get that justification back. And that's actually not helpful conversations around that stuff. But we love to be told that we're like a real martyr. Okay. What was your down talk? That would be like, what talked you down off that stress scale, and what got you to the place where you were able to like come back around. And so one helpful tool actually to do this is mindfulness meditation. We actually going to put something also in your handouts today that actually takes you through a breathing exercise that just slows you down and helps you go like, okay, like I can come down from this place of high stress where my button is like getting pushed. I can actually talk myself down off that ledge too. And then you're able to learn some different tools that will help you, not like fly off the handle. And then this is a huge one. What have you done to protect this button in the past? How have you kept people and yourself away from it? So what, like you were talking about with the open wound, like what are things that you're seeing now that you're recognizing, like, oh, the ways that I have kept people out because of this particular tenderness in me and this particular limbic memory. What have I done to keep myself protected and safe? And how can I start breaking down those walls? Which will take you to, how can I remove this button? And just a little secret with limbic memories, the only way to heal limbic memories is to make new limbic memories. So when we're talking about this experiential part of our brain where we've had these negative experiences that are impacting the way that we're living, we actually have the opportunity to do the same thing with positive experiences that will then change our memory to positive things in these very tracks that we have. So for me, that very strong limbic memory of a coach who said that to me, I now have all these other amazing tracks with my husband, who is like the most amazing person when it comes, especially when it comes to all of this for lots of reasons. But like the way that he has loved me unconditionally and he's seen me pretty much every way ever, up and down and all around. Right. So, but he like hit the limbic memories that he's created in me because he has shown me unconditional love, and in that, then it's made these new tracks of like, oh, that's actually not where my worth comes from. And I can start to see that like it's removed this button of perfectionism. I have to get this figured out before I'm worth anything, because I have these other new pathways of experiences with another person that took great risk to get in, to trust another person in those spaces that have now made new memories.
Because you had to take the step to be vulnerable with somebody trustworthy again. And it's not just be vulnerable with anybody. It's not just like, I'm going to go find somebody and ask them, hey, do I need to lose 25 pounds? Like, just don't do that. That's not a good idea. But entering into specific, risky, vulnerable situations with people that you know. And also, Kathy Dye says a healthy person knows what they need and how to ask for it. And that is so challenging for me, but it's so good because you want to walk into that trustworthy person, into that relationship and say, this is actually what I need from you. And this is what I don't need. But that's one of the ways you can start rewriting those limbic experiences. And it's challenging, but it's worth it. And it's the only way the button goes away. Overall.
Yeah. Those limbic experiences, as we discover them, it's really about intentionally stepping into risky conversations and healthy relationships with other people and making new ones in those tender, specifically in those tender areas, and then watching God allow us to be healed there. I mean, it's cool because the limbic system would be considered like the heart, like it's where our emotions and these memories are kept. And so when the Bible talks about the heart, like where Jesus comes in, when we say like invite Jesus into your heart, and you're like, well, the heart's pump the blood, that like it's kind of weird. No, it's into this space where we need this deep healing because of these experiences that we've had, and we don't even know it's down there sometimes, but God can come in and redeem and heal and bring wholeness there. So as you do this work, I hope that you make sure to invite Jesus into the process with you, and he'll bring some amazing healing there.
This is great stuff. Thank you for walking us through it. We also did this, we used all of Michael's content to work alongside him to create something called the Change Workshop that we did last fall, and it was a fantastic experience. It's 7 sessions long. It's all available on demand. We got a link in the description below and on the Better For It Workshops dashboard. So if this feels like you want to start delving into this content more, but also kind of the different aspects of this tool, the Change Workshop is going to be the perfect place to start that. So make sure to do that. Make sure you're registered to get your downloadable resources. Again, there are like 5 sheets this week, and so there's a bunch of stuff you're not going to want to miss out on. Make sure to share this with a friend as well, somebody that not only needs it, but somebody you can go through this stuff with and talk about it with. Really, real change happens when you have accountability and support. Those are necessary ingredients. So make sure you got somebody else going through this. You share it either on social media or with a friend. And besides all that, we will see you for the next edition, part 3 of the Better For It workshops.